Live stream goRIA with Jeff and Chuck. I am Jeff Benjamin, senior columnist with Investment News.
And I am Chuck Fala, the founder and CEO of Sovereign Financial Group and RIA enthusiast. Today, we are going to talk about what to do and what not to do when you leave your broker-dealer to go RIA. We'll be back in just about 10 seconds.
Oh, sorry, that music gets me every time. I was just moonwalking or whatever the kids are doing these days. Hey, so Chuck, what did you think of that interview we had with Brian Hamburger at Market Council for our most recent podcast? Some of your takeaways.
Not surprisingly, I thought it was really good. I mean, Brian is not short on opinions, and he certainly has some good ones. But I tell you what I thought was interesting, as far as the two things to really look out for when you're thinking about leaving your firm to go to another firm, go RIA, go to another broker-dealer, I suppose would all be the same thought.
Right.
One was like really old tech, and one was really new tech.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I thought that was kind of interesting. So the old tech suggestion was just don't talk to too many people about it, right?
Yeah.
He was saying how often people get really jammed up when they're going from one firm to another because they were talking to too many people, right? And we were talking about that whole idea of like, was that loose lips sink ships? I think came up in that conversation. And one of our first podcasts, we talked about that. You remember that guy, True Blood?
Yeah. Yep.
He was leaving a firm to start up his own RIA. And it happens. It happened to him. We talked about this in not our last podcast, but one of our earlier podcasts. And the poor guy got fired.
Yeah.
Right. So he was ready to leave. And luckily he had pretty much his ducks in a row, but he had, maybe some loose lips and his ship got sunk. Right. And it didn't ruin his transition, but it still made it a lot harder. But the other part that I thought was really interesting was sort of the new tech thing that people have to watch out for. It's almost like a play on AI. And what they were saying, or what Brian was saying, is that these firms have almost like algorithms. And he does a better job explaining this in the podcast. But I thought this was really interesting. So I guess firms, these big firms, they have algorithms, this whole big data thing. And they realize that when advisors run certain reports, that it's likely that advisor is looking to make a move. Right. So be careful on the reports that you're running. So if you're running like, let me have all the addresses of all of my clients.
Yeah.
And it's Christmas
Dead
time.
giveaway.
What you doing there, Bob? Right. So I thought that was kind of cool, not cool, but worth noting, that old tech, just don't talk to too many people about it. Keep it on an as need to know basis. And then new tech, be careful on the reports that you run. And the other part that I thought was interesting. So if you're coming from a firm that has a lot of proprietary products, that maybe don't transfer, they don't ACAT very well. I guess it's very common for those advisors to sell those proprietary products, put them into easier to transfer products. And that's evidently another big telltale sign, which I thought was kind of cool.
Yeah. The do's and the don'ts, really good stuff. And I encourage everyone to go listen to that podcast. It's a lot of good stuff there from Brian. One thing I thought was interesting, we were talking to him about getting found out. I guess found out is the right way to put it, because getting caught seems a little bit nefarious. You're really not breaking any laws. But is he talked about, this is something I'd never heard of before in all the years I've been covering this space and working for Investment News, is there are advisors, or I guess brokers, they're at these wirehouse firms, and they will hire a firm like Brian's Market Council to set up a RIA. It's an actual RIA. They get it registered and everything, and they intentionally get found out somehow, just to leverage a little bit more compensation or benefits from their brokerage firm. As we were talking about before this started, Chuck, I'm gonna dub that the fake away movement.
I love that. Yeah.
Because I want to look more into that, and I don't know how many people will talk to me on the record, but it's still kind of interesting, and that's almost like a like a like a employer beware thing. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
I don't know how you guard against getting faked out if somebody says they're going to leave and they want more money, or leave
Right.
or they want more money. Do you just say, okay, go ahead, take your chances? Or I don't know, but it is kind of a cool strategy. And I initially thought, well, that's a lot of money and time and investment. And I learned it's maybe $8,000 or something like that, which, to be clear, is a lot of money to me, but it might not be a lot of money to somebody clearing, $1
Sure.
million or something like that.
Sure.
And for the case of it, I don't know. I mean, it's interesting. I'd be interested on the success rate of it, how popular it is. Anybody wants to reach out to me directly on that, I'd love to talk to you about it. I'm sure I can protect your identity if you're in the process of doing something like that right now. But
Yeah.
very interesting. The fake away movement. That's you heard it here first.
That's right. Not a breakaway, but a fake away. Now, I thought that was really cool too. I never would have thought of that. And he said, and I'm going off of memory here,
Mm-hmm.
he's done it more than once. So this
Yeah.
is, I mean, it's a bit of a thing.
Yeah.
And for someone to go ahead, set up an RIA just as leverage, to go
Yeah.
back to their,
Yeah.
their Merrill Lynch complex manager saying, "Look, I got this
Yeah.
RIA, I'm going,
Yeah.
but I'll stay if you do this." I
Right.
thought that's actually kind of
And I'm
brilliant.
assuming it's got to be a little bit, sneaky. Like you don't want to just say, "Hey, I got this thing, I'm going." It's like, well, they might think, well, if you already got the thing, you're done. But if you just
Yep.
kind of let them somehow find out, I don't know how you do that. I mean, I guess not keeping a secret is just as hard as keeping a secret. But
Or they could just walk into the office saying, "Look, I'm quitting," right? And usually when someone does that, if they're a big
Mhm.
producer, the first reaction is, "No, no, please don't go," right? Don't take away
Yeah,
your $500 million
right.
and go down the street.
Yeah,
What can we do, Bob or Mary, to keep you to stay?
yeah.
And usually that happens as a afterthought, but these people were doing it with forethought, right? They were like,
Hmm.
"I'm going to do this, and I don't want to go." And I guess it's essentially a lifeboat in case the branch manager's like, "Yeah,
Hmm.
goodbye." But I thought that was kind of cool. But the other part too that he covered, just going into more of the brass tacks of things, and I think this is really important for people that are looking to break away, is what is the difference between a protocol and non-protocol breakaway?
Yeah.
And I think that's hugely important. And we've had folks join us, both protocol. Actually, no one has come to us as of yet, anyway, as a non-protocol. I think a
Hmm.
non-protocol is challenging, right? So with
Hmm.
the non-protocol transfer, and that would be any firm that's not signing on to the protocol. Morgan Stanley, I think, is the most famous one, right? When they
Hmm. Hmm.
left the protocol, what was that, maybe 3 years ago now? And that means you can't take any information with you, right? So if you have a book of business of 2, 3, 400 clients, that gets a little tricky. So that's kind of the bad news. But I thought Brian shared some really good thoughts on how you could
Yeah.
do this. You know, I think one of the best ones was get yourself on social media, right? So
Hmm.
you can't, take away 300, 400 phone numbers and emails. You're not supposed to. And if you get caught doing so, you have a pretty big problem. But you could certainly be on social media, and
Hmm.
on your social media say, "Hey, I started a new firm," or "I joined a new firm." And if those clients, find you because they're friends with you on Facebook or
Right.
LinkedIn or Twitter, that's cool. So, Brian made it really clear that, a non-protocol transfer, definitely more challenging, but
Hmm.
certainly not impossible. Protocol transfer is pretty simple. You bring, what's called the Christmas card list. You can take, the name, address, phone number, and you start calling. We actually just had someone join us this week doing that exact routine, and
Hmm.
it's pretty simple. And the easiest, and this is something I really want to focus on, the easiest, but it could also be the hardest. If you're
Mm.
coming from a fully independent firm, right, and you really, really own your book of business and you own your data, that's super simple, right? Because you already have that data, it's on your
Right.
database, you own it, you could bring it with you, and you could start soliciting right away. But something, and I think this is a really important tip to share, if you're going from one RIA to the other RIA, and we've seen this, I've seen this firsthand,
Hmm.
and you're thinking to yourself, "Well, geez, I'm independent, I'm at an RIA," they could put the brakes on, right? And that's something
Hmm.
that people don't quite understand. So we had one fellow that, I've been have spoken with, and he wanted to leave the current RIA. And he was like, "Well, I own my book of business." And the RIA to him said, "Sure, you could go. You can't use this custodian though."
Oh.
Right. So This advisor thought, well, this would be simple because I'm going to just break away and either join another RIA or create my own RIA, and I'm going to just stay
Right.
right with this custodian. It's one of the big ones. I won't mention which one it is because it doesn't matter, but it was one of the big ones. And the RIA said, sure, these are your clients. Sure, you could go, but we are going to tell this custodian, because we have a lot of money with this custodian, that you cannot stay there. Right? Isn't that kind of something? So what I would suggest to people, if you're joining a firm or joining an RIA, get in writing that if for some reason you want to leave, yes, you own your clients. You definitely want to get that buttoned up and
Right.
really, sure. But also put in there that the RIA will not prevent you from staying with that same custodian. Because if you can break away, if you choose to, it's a lot easier to stay within that same custodian as opposed to having to repaper to a whole new custodian. Looks like we have a question here. Great conversation. We've successfully helped a lot of advisors transition, leveraging digital in non-protocol situations. Right, we were just talking about that. We found that advisors who do this properly successfully transfer 30 to 60% more over. Great tip. And that's from David. David, thanks so much for that information. And that is very true. Like, social media is hugely important. And whether you're not on it, and that could also, again, going to that AI type of concept, if all of a sudden, you haven't been on social media and all of a sudden you're on social media, that could be a red flag too for your firm. So maybe be aware of that. But if you're even thinking about going RIA or just changing firms, right? But we're kind of RIA focused here. Get on social media now, so it's not like a big surprise. And even if you're not looking to make a move for a year or 2 or 5, get on now. Start getting your clients, plugged in with you. Because God forbid you're with one of these broker dealers that's currently in the protocol, and now they left the protocol. That's like a nice insurance policy, right? And plus, social media is a pretty good thing for your business anyhow. Open up a social media account, link in with your clients, make them friends on Facebook or LinkedIn or what have you. And that's a nice little safety net, right? I think that's a really good tip to have, whether you're going to leave the firm or not. And especially if you're with one of the big banks that's still in the protocol, but they don't have to be, right? The same way Morgan Stanley left. And if you're at a big bank, I would really strongly suggest getting social media and getting all your clients to link in with you. So if you ever decide you do want to leave, you at least have that as a safety net, which I think is pretty important. And of course, the podcast itself has just a ton of information. We're just kind of scratching the surface here, but I think some of those are the real more sales. Yeah. So on a looking forward basis, Jeff, I think you have a podcast coming up on Tuesday, right? What are you guys talking about there?
Webinar. Yeah, webinar on Tuesday, June 20th at 4 p.m. Eastern time. We are talking about fees, setting your advisory fees, the different types of fees that are available, the pros and cons of many of them, where the conflict potentially is. Seems like every fee structure has some kind of a potential conflict. We're talking to an RIA, Carolyn McClanahan. We're talking to Matt Matrish of AssetMark. And we're talking to Kate McBride, who is a former regulator and now a consultant. We're going to look at it from a lot of different angles. We'll be open for questions. It's going to be good. I know fees are a hot topic, and everything doesn't have to be asset-based. There's all kinds of different ways to what's the word I'm looking for? To skin a cat.
More than a way to skin a cat?
I don't know.
Absolutely.
I'm not a cat owner, so
Both you and I really need to work on our analogies, but I get it. But I tell you what, especially with younger advisors, if you're dealing with next-gen clients, I think those next-gen clients are really looking for different types of fee structures, right?
Yeah,
that subscription-based is becoming very popular. And boy, if you're not evolving in this or any industry, you have a problem, right? So if you're looking to go to the next gen, that's something you want to look at for sure. Yeah.
That's the whole thing about fees. And I talk to a lot of financial advisors, and the ones that are trying to reach the smaller end of the market, the lower end of the market, that people that don't have a lot of assets, but they might have a big income or something like that, or they just need help. It's a young family or something like that. You can't make a living charging them an asset-based fee. You could charge them an hourly fee. There's a flat fee. There's, project fees. There's so many different ways to do this. But we know that most of the industry is asset-based. And obviously there's a reason for that. It works on a lot of levels. But
Right.
anyway, we're gonna get into that in a big way, and it'll be a lot of fun. Again, June 20th at 4 p.m. Eastern time
Yep,
next
this
Tuesday.
coming Tuesday. That sounds good. And the one thing I just want to throw out there too, as far as what's on the website today, the goRIA website, of course, this podcast with Brian Hamburger, but one that we just did a webcast on direct indexing.
Mm-hmm.
Holy smoke! Like we had so much interest in that. We've been doing this now for about 2 years, these webcasts. And I mean, keep me honest here, Jeff. I don't think we ever had a webcast with so many questions. We couldn't get to them all. It was
Right.
really something.
Yeah.
So that's up on the website right now. It's a full discussion. We had folks from Orion, from Adhesion, from Morningstar, all talking about their different takes on direct indexing, why
Mm-hmm.
to do it, how to do it. I mean, really got into the weeds. I think that's a great replay that's available on the website right now. So for those of you in the audience, if you want to check out the podcast with Brian Hamburger, that's up on the webcast, not live, but available right now as a replay. The webcast that we just did a few weeks ago on direct indexing was hugely popular. That's on the website right now. So the way to get to that website, very simple. Just go to investmentnews.com. On the upper right-hand side, you'll see a little tab that says goRIA. Just click that, and it'll take you to the entire library of the podcast, the webcast, some of these older live streams, a lot of great articles curated by Jeff
Mm-hmm.
himself, just a lot of good content and building upon that. So check it out, and check it out on a weekly basis. We're always adding some stuff to that. And I think that's all we have for today. Next time you see me, we will not have the 1970s wallpaper. I'm obviously traveling. I'm in a hotel today. We'll be back to a more normal backdrop, I hope. But that's it. So on behalf of Jeff, our producer, Angelica, the entire Investment News team, thanks for joining us, and we will see you next Wednesday. Take care.